in 1920, Hgse welcomed its first class of 64 students. Now, 100 years later, it's quite fortuitous that our centennial falls in the year 2020. 2020 is the threshold for measuring perfect eyesight. And today, as I look around this room, I can clearly see a community of individuals dedicated to making education better. We are a community of more than 900 students and an alumni community that is nearly 30,000 strong. We are in classrooms, district offices, nonprofits, and other organizations around the world making a meaningful impact in the lives of students and communities. Our 74 core faculty, 83% of whom identify as women or people of color, yes, I said 83%, hail from a range of disciplines and use a myriad of approaches to inquiry. And we have nearly 400 staff from every walk of life working together to support and empower the larger Hgse community and the field of education. Together, we are an innovative, impact-focused professional school that recognizes the urgency of driving change in education. We seek to promote success for all learners, putting powerful ideas into practice. Here, 100 years after our founding, Hgse is the preeminent school of education in the world. We are proud, vibrant, and ambitious with a shared mission of improving the world through education. Of course, you hear the phrase, hindsight is 20/20, and we sometimes refer to it when considering and evaluating the past. And when I look back at Hgse's past, it may seem as if this day was inevitable, but it wasn't. In fact, the story of Hgse is a story of pivotal decisions, of meeting challenges from within and without, and it is a story of tremendous growth and reinvention. We have changed as our country has changed and our world has changed, just as the conception of what education should be and for whom has evolved. This point was made crystal clear to me when I interviewed 5 former Hgse deans as part of our Centennial Oral History Project. And you got a chance to see some of the photos of those interviews and the video. Now, these wonderful, wonderful friends, supporters, are leaders who helped this school and were part of the fabric that made us strong today. And they shared so much with me about what this community has fought for, weathered, and accomplished together. Let me give you a few examples. At a time when universities questioned whether ed schools were necessary, and in fact some ed schools were closing around the country, Hgse advocated successfully for education to be recognized as a profession in its own right, to be a specialized body of knowledge distinct from other areas of intellectual inquiry. And it was people here who pushed to be inside schools, to be connected to learners, educators, and communities, not just researchers who sit in the ivory tower. At a time when people questioned whether leaders mattered in schools, Hgse invested in attracting talent and preparing people to do one of the toughest jobs in the world, to be an urban superintendent. And then we expanded this focus on leadership to empower generations of educators, innovators, and entrepreneurs. It was people here who were courageous enough and bold enough to question the deeply held assumption that only some students can learn. All means all, and you hear that often in this community. Our community has demonstrated in hundreds of ways how success is possible regardless of background, ability, and context. And it was here that people advanced an agenda that recognized that education is far more than narrowly defined academic achievement. It is also social-emotional learning, moral development and civic engagement, and learning to work collaboratively with others while also being willing to have difficult conversations. It is for these reasons that so many of us are proud. Now, hindsight might be 20/20, but 2020 also conveys the idea of looking ahead with perfect clarity. Even though no one can predict what the world will look like in our bicentennial in the year 2120, give that some thought, we know that today, unfortunately, is a time of adversity, division, and transformation in the complex ecosystem we call education. And this is unlikely to change anytime soon. Despite progress in high school graduation rates, literacy, and access to higher education, there are stubborn gaps in opportunity and success at all levels, from access to high-quality early childhood education, to segregation and insufficient supports and rigor in K-12 classrooms, to uneven graduation rates and looming debt in higher education. And this is all happening in the midst of dramatic shifts in student demographics, uncertainty about resources, and teacher shortages and demands for greater pay and benefits. So while there's so much for us to be proud of here at Hgse, our work is most certainly not done. We know the stakes are incredibly high, and the focus on improving education could not be more important. And I believe, this is a time of hope and of possibility. And I believe that together, we are poised to bring about important change in education. Right here at Hgse, there have been advances in learning science and design, and the discovery of promising interventions and approaches that match to the strengths and needs of all learners. I feel truly fortunate to be here with you, to be a part of this community. I feel truly fortunate that each year I get to meet and work with dedicated individuals, educators, innovators, entrepreneurs who really can't sit still and watch students, children, adults, families, communities suffer. People who want to contribute in some way. And I'm heartened by the communities of practice who connect here to work together in their efforts to improve instruction and student and family supports. Yes, I'm optimistic, and I'm optimistic because of all of you. Your dedication, hard work, and ideas are leading the field forward. And with the many educators in the field we call colleagues, we will improve the world. So as we look with our 2020 vision, you may wonder what's ahead for Hgse. The answer is very much tied to the needs of the field. And thankfully, we're not starting from scratch. As we consider our future, we will rely on the values and the principles that have brought us here today. And you will see these ideals reflected in many of the events that we're going to have during the Centennial. First on the list, we conduct research that is grounded in practice and policy. Over a decade ago, and some of you may remember this, our community began to define itself as being at the nexus of research, policy, and practice. We continue with that approach. At Hgse, our research informs practice just as practice informs our research. And this mindset and approach has profound implications. We ask the questions that classroom teachers and district leaders actually want to know the answers to. We prioritize research that is going to actually have impact. Hgse was an early leader and continues to be an important catalyst in getting important actionable information into the hands of parents, schools, policymakers, and other leaders. And we do this because we are scholars, researchers, and practitioners who care about making a difference for students today. Our faculty, my beloved faculty, you have too many awards and accolades for me to list them today, but so many, all of you, are deserving of honor. For your MacArthur Genius Awards, being inductees into the National Academy, being on boards, editors of journals, and numerous book awards and research awards. So thank you again for all that you do. For those of you who are unfamiliar, to get a sampling of the important work that our faculty is doing, I again urge you to take a look at the breakout sessions that we'll be having this afternoon. You will learn of the many ways Hgse faculty have contributed to improving education through research, leadership, global partnerships, policy, supporting entrepreneurs, and teaching. And consider our research centers and initiatives. Each is putting innovative, evidence-based research to work in policy and practice. But more than that, they're not just doing the research, they're also building capacity in schools and systems by equipping educators and leaders with knowledge, tactics, and the networks they will need to enhance learning environments. To give you just a couple of examples, The Zant's Early Education Initiative is breaking down long-held misconceptions about early education by doing a first-of-its-kind, large-scale, population-based study of young children's learning and development. This team is combining the research with offering professional learning opportunities for early childhood educators and pioneering a fellows program to cultivate new leadership. Meanwhile, the Center for Education Policy Research is working with over 150 education agencies and districts, not only to do research, but also to see that research be put to practical use by utilizing a broad network of stakeholders, including leaders, teachers, coaches, and analysts. These are just two examples of a long list of many other innovative and important initiatives that I look forward to highlighting this year. A second theme that you will see in our Centennial events that conveys our vision forward is how we are committed to evolving as a school to meet the challenges of education. In fact, we have a long history of doing this. Consider the creation of the EDD, which established the vision of an engaged, impact-focused researcher and eventually developed to become the university-wide PhD in education. And then there's the creation of the Urban Superintendent's Program in 1990, and then the Doctorate of Education Leadership in 2010. Hgse created each one of these programs to address the challenges in system-level leadership, as well as how those needs have changed over time. And 50 years ago, Hgse established the Institute for Education Management, or IEM, which focuses on the continuing professional development opportunities for higher education leaders. IEM was Hgse's first program in professional education, and over the years we have taught and supported hundreds, yes, hundreds of college and university presidents, as well as provosts, deans, and other administrators. Our programs in professional development, our programs in professional education now reach more than 14,000 educators each year, and we have over 116 programs that help build the capacity of educators in pre-K, preschool, K through 12, higher education, as well as nonprofit leaders and education policymakers. So we have a long history of responding to the needs of the field, but also anticipating how we might contribute to the field and shape what the future looks like. And we will continue to do just that as we consider what skills and habits of mind are needed to be an impactful education professional for the 21st century. Now finally, a third very important theme of our Centennial this year will be how we stretch far beyond Appian Way. Now, within the larger university, you're going to hear from my friends and colleagues very soon about partnerships and collaborations we have with other schools within Harvard. But outside of the university, our partnerships and networks with alumni and collaborators, other collaborators, reach around the world and are a critical part of our impact model, as I've described before and talking about our research. But also consider the recent work of students and the Doctorate of Education Leadership Program. They are just returning from Birmingham, Alabama, where they worked to solve 5 significant entrenched problems of practice for that historic city and district. And I understand they were so successful that all of them would be welcomed back permanently if they just said so. In the past, our cohorts have done this type of work in Boston, Detroit, New York City, Atlanta, San Diego, Las Vegas, and there's a continuing list of cities, and even the Children's Defense Fund with Miriam Wright Edelman. This is just one example, again, of how Hgse gives back to our local and national communities. And as noted before, we have nearly 30,000 alumni, dedicated professionals who work inside and outside of schools. And you're going to hear many amazing stories about them this year. Take, for example, Margot Stern-Strom, who co-developed a curriculum on the Holocaust for students in grades K through 8 that became the nonprofit Facing History and Ourselves, which has grown from reaching just one school district to engaging millions of students in more than 200 countries. And then there's Jeffrey Canada. During his year at the Ed School, he says, great professors not only changed his understanding of education theory, but they taught him the importance of walking the walk. And with the Harlem Children's Zone, Jeff demonstrated that we can eliminate achievement gaps if we're willing to do the work. And then there's Ruth, Wong, Qicang, an alumna of both the master's and doctoral programs. She helped to transform the teaching profession in Singapore, giving rise to a world-class education system, and she was the inaugural director of what is currently Singapore's National Institute of Education. And these are just 3 of our many, many alumni. In fact, there are so many stories like this that we decided to produce a series of 100 of them. So I hope you will take a look at the website, and throughout the year we will be releasing more of these stories. If you're ever feeling discouraged, confused, or hopeless about the problems our world faces, I would urge you to visit this site, because these are stories of hope. They are evidence that we can change the world, that we can advance equity, and that we can create high-quality learning environments for everyone. So as we kick off this year of Centennial celebrations, convenings, and connections, let us consider what we have all accomplished. We conduct research that is grounded in practice and policy, and that has had real impact in contributing to the improvement of education. We have a long history of anticipating and meeting the challenges facing education, and we will continue to do so. And we extend far beyond Appian Way in partnership with our alumni and other educators to touch the lives of millions of students around the world. But this celebration is not because we are patting ourselves on the back or because we are content to rest on our laurels. Instead, let's use our 2020 vision to see our accomplishments as evidence that success is possible. When we bring together talented, dedicated people with ambitious aspirations for learners of all stages and ages, we can make progress. And so, as we look to the years ahead, I'd like to challenge you. I'd like to challenge everyone in this room, everyone in the overflow rooms, everyone who happens to see this video, to invoke our illustrious alumnus, Donovan Livingston, and the call to action he gave us at convocation several years ago. Education is the sleep that precedes the American dream. So wake up, lift your voices until you've patched every hole in a child's broken sky. And wake up every child so they know their celestial potential. Those weren't my words, those were Donovan's. So join together and find that one story, that one possibility that inspires you, and let it remind you of why you are here, why you are doing this work, and then go forward knowing you are not alone. You are part of a family of people dedicated to changing the world through education, and we, along with many, many educators around the world who are dedicated to this mission, will make meaningful change, the meaningful change so desperately needed by this world. Thank you.